We're recording.
Well, again, welcome everybody. You know, it's our usual very enthusiastic group here. And first of all, thanks to Bill Forstott for making the suggestion for this week's topic.
My pleasure.
Which is Al Jolson. Okay, very interesting topic. You know, and a few of you old timers out there may be a little more familiar with him than I was, but you know.
And are you calling us old?
Yeah, well, that's what I heard.
And I'm just, you know, my usual disclaimer here. I don't have a PhD in the history of American entertainment, and I haven't written a book on Al Jolson yet. So, you know, I've just strung together something here that I hope will be entertaining and interesting, and not a whole lot of talk from me, just a lot of strung together things, though I will touch on that elephant in the room named blackface, you know, kind of unavoidable. And you know, without further ado, I guess we'll start now. Here, I'd like everybody to watch this clip. Here, I'll be running it from a movie called The Singing Fool, 1928. It was a talkie, and even though, you know, the style is maybe a little different, a little dated, it is a very touching segment.
Oh, you're only free, sonny boy. You've no way of knowing, there's no way of showing what you mean to me, sonny boy. When there are gray skies, I don't mind the gray skies. You make them blue, sonny boy. Please, I can't make it, I tell you. Friends may forsake me, let them all forsake me. I still have you, sonny boy. You're sent from heaven, and I know your worth. You made a heaven for me right here on earth. And when I'm old and gray, dear, promise you won't stray, dear, from your dear old dad. Honey boy, when there are gray skies, I don't mind gray skies. I don't mind if you make them blue. Sonny boy, friends may forsake me. Let them all forsake me. I still have you, sonny boy. You're sent from heaven, and I know your worth. Why? You made a heaven for me right here on earth. The angels, they grew lonely, and they took you because they were lonely. I'm lonely too. Sonny boy.
unmute just for a minute, or allow option of unmuting to people?
Steve?
Because I have to say that, you know, as old as it is and a little bit corny, I don't think you can watch that dry-eyed, you know.
No.
Yeah, go ahead, Gail, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you find out why he used blackface?
Yeah, I'll be getting into that.
Okay.
It just, just,
Thank you.
you know, bear with me. It's not necessarily in, you know, the order you might expect. I'm trying to make it a little, you know, interesting. And, you know, there'll be a real emphasis on the clips and a little bit less on listening to me. Because as I explained, you may have missed it, Gail, but I didn't write a book on Al Jolson. So again, you know, I just have to, you know, please don't hit the expert too hard, because it won't be too hard to stump me. Even though I did prepare a little bit, I printed out Wikipedia on Al Jolson, so I might be able to look things up pretty quickly. But anyway, yeah, we are going to get into the blackface, absolutely, positively, because that's pretty unavoidable here. So I'm sorry, yeah. And this was from the movie The Singing Fool, which was, I think everybody heard of the jazz singer, where, you know, and of course I don't have to tell anybody here, Al Jolson is of the tribe, you know. He was actually born in a shtetl in Lithuania, came over as a young boy, and got into entertainment after getting into a little bit of trouble too, like a lot of Jewish boys from the shtetl. And he did this in blackface, yes. It was a follow-up to his previous film. And it tells a story. I don't want to do a total spoiler here if somebody goes back and wants to watch the movie, but it is a little sad about someone who's very attached to his son, who he calls Sonny Boy, and the child tragically becomes very sick at some point. So here, and here's another clip. Now this is kind of jumping ahead. 1950. Going to play it.
Wow.
In Hollywood, tens of thousands, including the great of the entertainment world, pay their final respects to Al Jolson, the immigrant rabbi's son who brought so much happiness to 2 full generations of Americans. He had just returned from Korea, to which he had flown at his own expense, to bring to soldiers overseas, as he had in 2 earlier world wars, the songs he had made famous. Songs he first brought to the screen a quarter century ago as the star of the world's first talking picture, Warner Brothers' The Jazz Singer. Songs like Mammy.
Mammy, I'm coming. Oh, God, I hope I'm not late. Mammy, don't you know me? It's a little baby. I walk a million miles for one of your smiles. For my
For millions, the final curtain will never fall on Al Jolson.
Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in DIX. I even know my mammy's waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north won't see me no more when I get to that Swanee.
Oh, sorry about that. Now, I kind of jumped ahead. I am jumping around just to keep it interesting. And I found out a lot of things I didn't know before when I started researching this. I didn't go to the library. I went to the internet, which has a lot of information. He has quite an impressive tomb in Culver City, California.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, this I didn't know about. And of course, you could say, if you know a little bit about Al Jolson, you could say, well, there's that ego. I wasn't sure from what I was able to find out that it was really his doing, that it was that big. It may have been primarily his fourth wife who gave the design to an architect after he passed, the Hollywood architect to the stars, who designed the stars' home. So he also designed this this final home, which is quite interesting. I have a clip here, and I think it's going to be on my list if I'm ever in the vicinity. Do we want to unmute? Does anybody want to say anything? Any hands?
Steve.
Yeah, who is that?
Yeah, it is an amazing. So, you know, you're going to get to see it, so I won't tell you about it. But I've got an aunt and uncle.
Who is this, please? I'm not seeing who it is. Who's
Gary.
speaking?
Gary Melton.
Gary.
Oh, okay, Gary. Yeah, please speak up. Yeah,
I've got an aunt and uncle, Bill and Sophie Ornstein. That, and as you look at it, I think they're going to show it from the bottom. It's at the Hillside Memorial Park Jewish Cemetery. We've been out there a few times. And it's his is amazing. Okay. It's just as you come in. But my aunt and uncle actually buried. They must have got the plot many years ago. But they're actually buried just to the left of his elaborate site. They're in a very normal burial site. But up the hill from there in the entombment area, I've got another Uncle Abe that's buried right next to Jack Benny, who's up there. But it's quite an interesting cemetery. But I got to say, Al Jolson's is right the centerpiece. So I thought his father had said on that clip you just showed was a rabbi. I thought he was a cantor, was my understanding. When they came over.
Yeah. The father. Did they show him in the clip? I don't think they did. But
I don't know they do in the clip. No. I just know what I've read. I thought.
Yeah. Well,
Washington D.C.
Yeah. The information says cantor / rabbi, maybe. Yeah, and actually that is in the semi-autobiographical or biographical, the semi-biographical, the jazz singer that comes out. You know that the main character is, of course, the son of the cantor who gets very sick on Kol Nidre Eve, and the jazz singer, his estranged son, takes over and just goes up to the pulpit. Yeah, a very famous scene. There's, you know, Kol Nidre in the first, the first talking film, supposedly, what's called.
I read that he and his brother, who performed together a lot originally with another fellow, Palmer, that they didn't want to sing in the temple when they were growing up. They were singing a lot, but out on the street and everywhere but in the temple.
Yeah. So it's pretty biographical, that story, the jazz singer. It's very much. So I'm going to play this clip for folks who haven't seen this very interesting tomb.
Yeah.
There was a time I could listen to sob songs all night through. But now where I'm concerned, they're all taboo. No sad song for me. I'm happy-go-lucky and carefree. I've had my fill of this thing called love, but it's ancient history. For months and months, it had me down. I carried the biggest torch in town. From now on, I'm traveling single. Oh, never more to mingle, no, 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 sad songs for me. No sad songs for me. I'm happy-go-lucky and carefree. Ooh. I've had my fill of this thing called love, but it's ancient history. For months and months, it had me down. I carried the biggest torch in town. From now on, I'm traveling single, oh, never more to mingle, oh no, no, sad songs for me. No sad song for me.
Okay, and what I read was that Jack Benny actually delivered the eulogy at his funeral, and Jack Benny, I think, is buried somewhere. It's a big space, you know, so it's actually in the Al Jolson tomb, or what did you say, Gary, or next
There's
to
a
it,
big
maybe?
mausoleum. There's like 3 large buildings, mausoleums, and it's the one right adjacent to just up the hill. And
so Jack Benny has his own.
Yeah,
place.
it says, yeah, he's got a separate little place up there. There's thousands of people. My uncle just happened to end up right next to Jack Benny, but yeah, he's very near to it, but he's not in it.
Yeah, very, very cool. That's some yichus there. Yeah.
There's a funny saying on Jack Benny's thing. I can't remember what it is now, but he's got a really funny little corp on his space there where he.
Probably something about the cheapness. Some kind of, he was always making the cheapness jokes, you know, about what it cost him, or he got it on a special deal, or.
Steve,
yes.
I can imagine Jack Benny putting something there, calling Rochester to make sure everything's taken care of there.
Yeah, Rochester.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yeah, and this is that thing that you really have to touch on, okay, this subject. But what about the blackface? He started doing it. Of course, this is my information that I got off the internet in 1904. Advised to, he didn't invent it. He was advised to by a fellow performer. Today, of course, this is considered very insulting, very demeaning, and very reminiscent of racism. Okay, and not to be an apologist here, but it appears, again, based on the information that I have, that in all other ways, Al Jolson was not a racist, and actually was very supportive of Black performers, had them in his shows, was trying in his own mind to introduce the American audience to a style of music that they perhaps weren't accustomed to. He thought he was presenting the Black minstrel show idea and jazz to an American public. You probably noticed in the a film clip that I showed right at the beginning, the singing fool. Initially, the audience seems very agitated. And of course, I haven't seen that film. I'm not sure what that is. I'm imagining that that's to show you that they're not quite accustomed to this whole idea, but you know, by the end, they're giving him a standing ovation. There is a a story that's told about him that's pretty reliable, that he found out about two black musicians who were denied service in a restaurant, and was very angry about that, and very publicly invited them to be his guests at the restaurant, and said, "I'll punch anybody in the nose who tries to say anything about this." So in many ways, again, he was an innovator in his entertainment style. And this was part of it. And it's part of our history that is quite unfortunate. At the time, I should also add, at the time, he had support of the black press. In other words, you would think if this was clearly insulting from the very beginning, that there would have been some comment. There wasn't. He had a lot of enthusiastic support from the black community, who also saw him as disseminating their culture. So again, it was a different time, but now it's pretty inexcusable. No question about that.
Hey, Steve?
Yes.
It says that he wasn't a racist, but he was guilty of many faults.
Oh, well.
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate on that? Or do you plan?
Again, I didn't write the book on Al Jolson, but what I know of him in his personal life, there were issues. And he was married 4 times.
Yeah.
Which sometimes that can indicate that you've got a little bit of an issue with your interpersonal skills, Maybe.
Putting it mildly.
Yeah, he was, but he gave it all for his audience, and he reaped the benefits of that. He was a first-class quality entertainer, and was top of the list. So he was the highest paid American entertainer. He got paid more than Frank Sinatra, But in late 40s, he was it. I mean, can any folks support me on that here, who are a little more personally, because he died 4 years before I was actually born, but maybe some of you remember his kids, that he was kind of a big deal. Well, I'd like to have a little discussion here. Any comments?
I don't know. I just wonder what happened to his brother, that he originally started performing with his brother, and then
they fought.
Palmer.
Yeah, they had a falling out.
Okay.
Or maybe, yeah, I think I'm a little bit about that, what the exact problem was. Yeah, Harry, his brother was Harry. Harry left the trio after an argument with Jolson. Harry had refused his request to take care of Joe Palmer, who was in a wheelchair. I guess Joe Palmer was somebody who was associated with them.
He was the third
professionally.
The original group, yeah.
Yeah, and they sort of broke up over that.
People look right.
Steve?
Yes, who's speaking?
It's Bill.
Oh, yeah, Bill, go ahead.
Just a little anecdote. Many, many years ago, I lived in an area of Queens called Forest Hills. That was the home of the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium, the U.S. Open, and there was an area of Forest Hills called the Forest Hills Gardens, and it was controlled by a man by the name of Cord Meyer. Cord Meyer Development. He was a super racist, anti-Semite, but very wealthy man. And Al Jolson, I went to see it. He had a house. He had many houses. He had a house in the Forest Hills Gardens. Beautiful house. And I went to see it, I'm not saying that there was any connection, but he did have a house in this anti-Semitic development.
Maybe the point was to break that anti-Semitism.
Maybe it was sort of an in-your-face gesture, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that was a common thing. When I was a kid, I didn't realize this until years later. But there were neighborhoods when we looked at, when my father, you know, got discharged from the army, he wanted a house on the GI Bill, you know, and was looking around, you know, there were places that they sort of sensed that you were Jewish. They said, you won't be comfortable there. You won't be comfortable there. That there were neighborhoods around where I ended up was very Jewish, you know, for a reason, you know, because there are other neighborhoods, you won't be comfortable here, you know. You won't be comfortable. They don't have your church here, you know. So common practice, yeah, when I was a kid, it was the 60s, you know. That was still taking place.
Hi, everyone. This is Grace. My grandmother was a singer and a performer for a number of years, long before I was born. And although I'm, you know, I was born in late 61, these cantors and jazz singers, this sounds very familiar to me for some reason, because she always had wonderful stories, and she was a great singer. She had a wonderful voice. So I know I've heard of him, and it's interesting, the history. I'm having a good time listening. Thank you.
And it never occurred to me when I was growing up as a kid that this guy could even be Jewish. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly Jewish stick, is it? You know, but yeah, he is one of the tribe. Yeah, go figure, a Jew in the entertainment industry, huh? I'm being facetious here. Next. Oh, this is a little bit more about his, you know, early background. And like I said, he was born in a Jewish village in Lithuania, thereby making him a Litvak, you know, whoever cares. I sort of get into it in my family because my father was a Litvak, or considered himself a Litvak. My mother was a Galicianer, and my father would rib my mother a lot over that. But his father qualified, here it says, in 1891, his father qualified as a rabbi and cantor and moved to New York City to try and get a better future for the family. His father, of course, came over early before the rest of the family, like many families in, you know, the old Russian Empire. They wouldn't come over all together as a family. They came over in drips and drabs. That's the way my family came over too. It's just, you know, one or two at a time, because that's how they could afford the tickets. Jolson's mother died very early, and he was in a reformatory for a while, so that's why I said maybe he got into a little bit of trouble, but found his venue in entertainment, you know, as a lot of, I don't know what it is in the Jewish character where we all want to perform, but I think there might be a little bit of a genetic predisposition there. I don't know. Any comments? And as Gary mentioned, you know, he was performing initially with his brother. They had a sort of a group show, the old vaudeville style.
Steve?
Yes.
It's Bill again.
Yes, Bill.
Just a little anecdote. It was in the early 1950s, right before he died. We were all excited, my family. They billed it as the last big show for Al Jolson, and he was booked at the famous Carnegie Hall. And we had tickets. We couldn't wait to go. And then suddenly he died. We never got, of course, to see the show.
Yeah. He died. I don't know if I mentioned it, but he died. He was playing cards. He died suddenly during a card game. He had just come back from performing for troops in the Korean War, and actually he was awarded for that. That was something that he was also a trailblazer in performing for troops. He was the first, or one of the first, to go overseas to perform during World War II and perform for GIs. Okay. Who was quite a patriot. And so what? This is just a little more biographical information on him. Oh, this is the, I had to include this. This is the Kol Nidre scene from The Jazz Singer, where he takes over for his seriously ill father, the cantor, on Kol Nidre night. And he's singing the Kol Nidre. And of course, this was the first talking film, but it wasn't totally talking.
Right.
You know, a lot of it was just still subtitles. There were some songs. As you saw earlier, Mammy, when his mother is in the audience, and you see her in this scene too. So, yeah, any comments, please? Anybody?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I've just looked it up. The cantor, I guess, was his father, was played by Warner Oland, who played Charlie Chan in later films. That also was subjected to a lot of, you know, racial type of criticism later on.
Sure, sure. Yeah, by today's standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve?
Yes.
Marilyn, here.
Yes.
Did you come across anything, comments about how interesting it was that the first talkie was about a Jewish subject and a Jewish family?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important point. I haven't come across a discussion, but yeah, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
and it's because he's the guy, he's the star. Yeah. And they stuck the very first talking movie picture had Jewish stuff in it, you know, so.
And was a big hit.
Yes, yes, yes. In spite of the Ku Klux Klan being in their heyday and a lot of crazy people all over the world saying things about the Jews, you know, this. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Do remember, though, that Birth of a Nation was shown not too many years earlier.
It was, I think, about the same time. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A very different theme. Yeah, yeah.
Very.
Yeah. Yeah, the Ku Klux Klan, the good guys come to rescue the damsel, as I recall. But yeah, I don't know, those of you in my... well, I think most of the people here were here for my Civil War talk, right? The Civil War Jews. And interestingly, I think I mentioned that, you know, I had a lot of Jewish Confederates. And one of them was Simon Baruch, the father of Bernard Baruch. And he was a Ku Klux Klan member. Apparently, they let in Jews. I don't know if he was very active, because what I found about it was that Bernard Baruch, as a kid, was like just exploring in the attic and found a trunk. And in the trunk was the Confederate uniform that his father wore. And underneath that was this, you know, hooded schmatas that, you know, the Ku Klux Klan guys wear. So maybe he dropped out when he found out what they were all about, you know, if it was in the attic. But yeah, it started out as a Confederate organization. Well, ex-Confederates, you know. Nathan Bedford Forrest, if I remember correctly, was a Confederate general, and he started the Ku Klux Klan. Yep. Sorry about that. I've got another clip here for you. I'll just let it speak for itself, if I can get it to speak.
Wait a minute, I tell you, you ain't heard nothing. You want to hear Toot Toot Tootsie? All right, hold on. Lou, listen, play Toot Toot Tootsie, 3 choruses, you understand? In the 3rd chorus, I whistle. Now give it to him hard and heavy. Go right ahead. Toot Toot Tootsie, goodbye. Toot Toot Tootsie, don't cry. The little choo-choo train that takes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me. Kiss me pretty and then, ow, ow, do it over again. Watch for the mail, I never fail. If you don't get a letter, then you know I'm in jail. Hey, hey, don't cry, Tootsie, don't cry. Kiss me, Tootsie, goodbye. Don't cry. The little choo-choo train that makes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me. Kiss me pretty and then, hey, hey, do it over again. Watch for the mail, I'll never fail. You don't get a letter and you know I'm in jail. Da, da, da. Don't cry, Tootsie, don't cry. Ah. Goodbye, Tootsie, goodbye.
Just occurred to me watching this that maybe just looking at, you know, his moves while he was singing, you think maybe Elvis Presley got influenced by this guy? I know it's not exactly the same style of music, but but the moves, if you notice the moves.
I just typed that in the chat.
Really?
Yeah, I noticed
that in?
I did right before you spoke it. Yes.
What was that from? What was that clip from?
I think it's from the jazz singer. Yeah, I would have to check back just to make sure, but I
think it was
think
the
that
jazz
was the
singer.
actress. I think I recognized the actress who was sort of looking and, you know, being very moved from that scene we saw from Cole Nidre. I think it was that.
Steve?
Same lady. Yes.
Steve, wasn't Toot Toot Tootsie also one of Eddie Cantor's songs?
Yes.
It could be.
Yeah, actually, according to IMDb, Eddie Cantor was offered the role of the jazz singer and he turned it down.
How about that?
Oh.
Yeah, he and Georgie Jessel both.
Wow.
Also, do you think he did that whistling sequence there?
I don't know. I was going to ask you. What you thought? If you thought that was legitimate. Now, if it wasn't legitimate, if he wasn't doing it, they must have done it somehow. How would they have done it? You know, it's somebody knows how to do those bird calls. You know,
it's that woman in the audience.
No, somebody. He was a talented guy. I mean, yeah, maybe that was another one of his tricks. You know, he had a bunch of tricks. So yeah, if not him, somebody very talented was doing those bird calls, you know, because I'm not sure what else could have made him, you know. You can't train a bird to do that, right?
I don't know. Have you ever seen America's Got Talent?
Yes.
Okay. You remind me of something. Yeah, George Jessel. There was some sort of big gathering. I don't recall what it was, what I read exactly, but Al Jolson was there with his fourth wife, who was very young. She was actually an X-ray tech that he had met at an army base, and much younger, you know, very pretty X-ray tech. And she had never seen him perform. And George Jessel started, you know, kind of nudging Al Jolson to perform. He wasn't scheduled to perform. He was just there, you know, and kind of saying, "Oh, we have, you know, the supreme entertainer, you know, Al Jolson with us." And Al Jolson stands up and takes a bow and then sits down again, but the audience doesn't let him, you know. The audience starts yelling and he stands up again and takes a bow, sits down. No, we want, you know, Al Jolson. So he got up and performed, and that was the first time that his young wife had actually seen him perform. She had never seen him perform in public. This is the one who ultimately bought that very ostentatious mausoleum for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Oh, any other comments? Anybody else want to say something? How are we doing for time here? Oh, 10:46. We're good. We're good. I have a few more here.
Wait a minute.
Let's see what this is. I don't recall. This is from Wonder Bar.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to apologize for our show being a little late in starting. But the truth of the matter is our gigolo lost a stud out of his shirt and he's down his hands and knees looking for it, you understand? An old Armenian custom. But to give you a rough idea how good our little show is, I'm going to open myself. Tommy, kick it around. Good evening, everybody. You are welcome here tonight. Good evening. Good evening. To all you royal Russians and you Prussians on my right, Dobry Vetsy. Good Abend. To all you Frenchmen, let me say bonsoir. You're always welcome at my wunderbar. Melbourne. Why do you come to Cape Harry? Hey! Why do you come to France? Why do you leave your wives at home? Let me tell you the answer. The girls are fairer down on the Riviera. So give up is stronger, the kiss lasts much longer. So viva, viva, viva la France. See all the charms of the quaint old Latin quarter. Be in the arms of a lovely Latin daughter. So let's make whoopee and whoopee, whoopee, whoopee. And viva, viva, viva la France. While wifey slumbers, you're calling telephone numbers. You're making viva, viva la France. You think she slumbers, but she's out doing rumbers. Down at that wiggle jiggle dance. Frenchmen are gallant, the women can't resist them. Frenchmen have talent, you ought to try their system. Stop parley-booing, do I know what I'm doing? I'm making viva, viva la 50 million Frenchmen can't be wrong. N'est-ce pas? Viva la France!
Oh, any comments?
Obviously, he didn't need the blackface to be very successful.
He what?
How talented he was.
Now, what did you say?
No, I said he certainly did not need the blackface. They said in the description he started in blackface when he was probably like 20 years old and did that for most of his roles. But obviously there he showed how talented he was, and he didn't have to hide behind a, another persona.
Yeah, and as you're saying, it's a little bit, some performers, I think, perform better if they're hiding a little bit behind a mask, Miles Davis famously did his best solos with his back to the audience. Is that correct? Do I have that right? Or
Oh, yeah. It's one of the reasons I didn't care for him.
Yeah, maybe it was just easier for him to pull it off that way, But then ultimately, in his mind, he was introducing the American public to this culture. And that's how he did it. He didn't do it in a derogatory manner. Again, in his own mind. In our minds today, by our standards, yes, it's, if you do it at all, it's derogatory.
Steve?
Yes.
It's at the lower end of the presentation here. It says he did 42 shows in 16 days.
Whoa.
And then when he returned, he died. That's a fantastic number of performances, so condensed. No wonder he was ready to go.
Yep. Really? That'll do it. Yeah. Hey. I think so. Yeah, just the sheer exhaustion. Sure. If you're not, how old was he? He wasn't that old. Yeah.
64.
Oh, 60. Yeah, below 65. Yeah. And he was considered, of course, a real innovator in his performing style. He had a great influence on the American musical theater. The way he was doing stuff, people saw was it worked. It was a good idea. Of course, there was a very different singing style after his time developed. It was more crooning. It was a little softer, but he got his entertainment chops in I'm just blanking on the name, the old style, just the old sort of variety shows, where you didn't have amplification. Everybody got up, they did their act, and you had to
vaudeville.
Vaudeville. That's what I was blanking on. Yeah, vaudeville. You just have to project. So all the singing is real loud, That's also, I don't think he needed amplification.
I wonder how present day people of color, if they're even aware of him, how they perceive of him.
I mean, it would be interesting, but I can tell you that, at least what I'm reading is he had good intentions. He was not in his mind mocking them.
Right, I'm sure. Thomas Jefferson had good intentions in Christopher Columbus too, and we see what's happening out in the world with statues being pulled down.
Yeah. Right. So it makes things very difficult and complex. You know that blackface is pretty universally seen as something very sad. Mm-hmm. Actually, Shirley Temple did blackface.
Yeah.
Fun fact, or not so fun fact.
Yeah.
And a lot of entertainers did. Ted Danson tried it, not too successfully.
Oh, yeah. With Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, he thought he was being funny.
Yeah.
Now, here's a guy who at least sounds like he knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to let him say a little bit about Al Jolson here. Here we go.
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at the story of Al Jolson, misunderstood hero or villain. Ask most movie fans, what was the first talkie, and the most frequent reply tends to be The Jazz Singer starring Al Jolson. This is a sort of correct answer, but not really. The earliest sound movies were made by synchronizing motion pictures to phonograph records. In 1926, a year before The Jazz Singer, Warner Brothers re-released the previously silent film Don Juan with a soundtrack recording done by the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. Warner Brothers also released the first actual all-talking feature-length motion picture in 1928. It was called Lights of New York. The following year, 20th Century Fox released In Old Arizona, the first all-talkie feature with sound directly recorded on the film. The Jazz Singer was actually a silent movie with poorly synchronized musical numbers and a few sentences of spoken words. One of the main reasons The Jazz Singer is such a legendary film is because of its star, the immortal Al Jolson. Jolson was by all accounts the Elvis Presley of his time. At the time The Jazz Singer was released, Jolson was one of the biggest stars in show business. As a side note, Jolson did make several films after The Jazz Singer, but none came close to it in popularity or historical significance. Many current movie fans are familiar, at least somewhat, with Jolson and his showbiz legacy, but he has few current-day fans. This is partly because Jolson's shtick was the blackface act, which is, to contemporary movie fans, beyond disgusting. Blackface, which is captured for posterity in many films of the first half of the 20th century, is a sad reminder to most people of the ridicule and mistreatment of black Americans. Jolson didn't always use blackface in his act, but because most people of today know him only by The Jazz Singer, his reputation is often a symbol of a very backward time. Also, Jolson's singing style, unlike Elvis's or Frank Sinatra's or Dean Martin's, does not hold up well. His songs seem rather hokey and schmaltzy. His singing style is clipped and choppy and not melodic. His dance moves look rather silly and definitely dated. Supposedly, Jolson was not a nice man in real life either. Most of his fellow performers say he was deeply insecure. According to his contemporary, Groucho Marx, Jolson was so insecure that he would leave the water faucet running in his dressing room during his live appearances so he couldn't hear the applause for the previous acts. During his Broadway performances, Jolson would often stop the show in the middle and say to the audience, "Hey folks, do you want to hear the rest of the show, or do you want to hear Jolie sing?" The crowd would inevitably applaud and cheer for the show to stop. At this point, Jolie, Jolson's nickname, would sing some songs to the widely appreciative crowd. Jolson really didn't seem to be such a great guy, or was he? No one is all bad, or all good for that matter. In fact, Jolson was, ironically enough given his perception today, a crusader for black Americans in show business. For instance, he was instrumental in helping to promote black playwright Garland Anderson's work, which resulted in the first Broadway production with an all-black cast. He also attempted to have an all-black dance team featured in a Broadway show at a time when black people were banned from Broadway productions. As black dancer Jenny Lagon said, "In those times, it was a black and white world. You didn't associate too much socially with any of the stars. You saw them at the studio, you know, nice, but they didn't invite. The only ones that ever invited us home for a visit was Al Jolson and Ruby Keeler." In another instance, Jolson read that songwriters Noble Sissy and U.B. Blake, neither of whom he knew at the time, had been thrown out of a restaurant because of their race. When he heard this, he tracked the pair down and took them out to dinner and reportedly told them he'd punch anyone in the nose who tried to kick us out. As for his blackface persona, which seems to almost literally fly in the face of his apparent true feelings on race, this persona was often used as a means to introduce white audiences to black culture and also make fun of the general idea of white supremacy. As such, when black audiences saw The Jazz Singer, rather rather than boycott it, a Harlem newspaper, Amsterdam News, today the oldest black newspaper in the country, according to their website, stated that the jazz singer was one of the greatest pictures ever produced, and that every colored performer is proud of him. Jolson also insisted on the hiring and fair treatment of black people at a time when this was an outlandish concept to many in America. For example, at the time, members of the KKK are estimated to have accounted for about 15% of the US's voting-age population. He also crusaded for equal rights for black Americans as early as 1911, when he was 25. Through his very controversial portrayals and advocating for black performers, Jolson helped pave the way for the success of such legends as Louis Armstrong, Ethel Waters, Duke Ellington, and Cab Calloway. As the St. James Encyclopedia of Popular Culture stated, almost single-handedly, Jolson helped to introduce black American musical innovations like jazz, ragtime, and the blues to white audiences. Famed African-American jazz singer Clarence Henry noted of Jolson, I loved him. I think he did wonders for the blacks and glorified entertainment. Beyond the controversy surrounding Jolson, he was also the first performer to entertain American troops in World War II. A few years later, he was also the first to do the same during the Korean War. Yes, even before Bob Hope. His breakneck performance schedule in the latter is actually thought to have contributed to his death soon after. In his later years, Jolson, for the most part, led a contented life of semi-retirement. He remains a huge legend and icon. Even as late as 1948, with Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, and other singers on the scene, Jolson was voted America's most popular male singer. Al Jolson died shortly after entertaining the troops in 1950. He left a wife and 2 newly adopted children. Reportedly, black performers lined the way at his funeral to pay their respects to the man that had helped popularly introduce white America to elements of black culture. In the end, Al Jolson is often seen today as a villain, and it is perhaps an understatement to say that even to his most staunch supporters, Jolson remains a controversial figure. But it would seem that the truth is that Al Jolson, much like us all, is a mixed bag. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Hit that subscribe button on the screen or below this video now. Also, do check out some of our previous videos from the archives, which are linked to on the screen now. And as always, thank you for watching.
Oh, well done. Well done.
Yeah. Now, I was just reading something here in Wikipedia about entertainers who say they have been influenced by him. Elvis Presley wasn't on the list, but interestingly, there is Jackie Wilson, African-American singer, who recorded a tribute album to Jolson. You ain't heard nothing yet, which is one of his phrases that he liked to say, which included his personal liner note, the greatest entertainer of this or any other era. I guess I have just about every recording he's ever made, and I rarely miss listening to him on the radio. During the 3 years I've been making records, I've had the ambition to do an album of songs which to me represent the great Jolson heritage. This is simply my humble tribute to the one man I admire most in this business to keep the heritage of Jolson alive. Okay, so this is from an African-American singer.
Very interesting. I think it's important. It shows that it's important that we look at history in its context and not just as one incident, and maybe, look at the whole man instead of, and actually what comes out of this was that the blackface was to get the people to understand black music and look at black entertainers rather than as an insult, right?
Yes. Yes, I agree with you totally.
I was just thinking about current events. The coverage for John Lewis, his death this last week has been phenomenal. Yes. All 3 TV channels have carried it.
Not all morning. No other news.
Yeah, Fox, even Fox. I mean, it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
Keep working at it. Long road to go.
Steve, this has been a great program. I grew up with my mom and all. Al Jolson and
today I come. Okay, well, others. I'm glad you could.
Al Jolson, Malik Pecan, who you've done in the past, and just all Jewish music and content. She always had playing or was singing herself and all, and enjoying it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, You're all a good group. Any other?
Steve, I want to just say thank you. I've got to scoot over to
wonderful, Steve.
PCC Zoom meeting, but thanks very much. It's really good.